Giving sacrificially. We should seek to please God by offering Him sacrificial gifts. Here now is Gene Getz.
Now this principle again relates back to what David did in relationship to numbering the people. He shouldn't have numbered them. He took responsibility for that sin. There was judgment. He took full burden of that, said, Lord, please punish me, not the people. I did this. But the fact is that God said, hey, what you need to do is you need to make a sacrifice. And so we see that happening. 2 Samuel 24, verses 24, 25. The king answered Araunah. And here is a man that owned this land where he wanted to make this sacrifice. And by the way, this place for the sacrifice, they speculate, was Mount Moriah, where Abraham was going to offer his own son, Isaac. It's also, tradition says, the same place where Christ was crucified. So David is making a sacrifice in a very historic place. And the king, David, answered him because this man wanted to give it to him. You're the king. You just take it. You can take the oxen, you take the wood, the place, and notice David's response. No, I insist on buying it from you for a price. Now, why did he say that? Well, he answers that. For I will not offer to the Lord my God burnt offerings that cost me nothing. And David then brought the threshing floor and the oxen for 20 ounces of silver. He built an altar to the Lord there and offered burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. And then the Lord answered prayer on behalf of the land, and the plague on Israel ended. And remember, the plague was because of David's sin. But in terms of his own sin, he made an offering for himself, an offering for the children of Israel. But it was a sacrifice. And David recognized that he wasn't going to take something that somebody gave him, that it cost him nothing, and they make a sacrifice. Well, it wouldn't be a sacrifice at all. And so I think there's a powerful principle here of giving sacrificially. Let me read the principle again. We should seek to please God by offering Him sacrificial gifts. Now, what is that? What is a sacrificial gift? And I've got to be honest with you as I sit here, I'm not sure I've ever made a sacrificial gift. By sacrifice, it really cost me something. Really cost me something. Now, some of you may have made sacrificial gifts. I feel like I've been faithful in giving. My wife and I have, even when we had very little, right from the time we were married, we decided we were going to give a tithe of all that I made before taxes. We just made that decision. And we gave it. But did I ever sacrifice? There were times when we didn't have very much. We didn't have money initially to put furniture in our living room. Which kind of turned out to be a blessing. The kids come along because it was like a gymnasium. There was nothing in it. They could just have a lot of fun. But no, I'm not sure that was a sacrifice. Not in our culture. You see, when I compare that with, for example, 2 Corinthians, where Paul talks about sacrifice. We want you to know, brothers, sisters, writing to the Corinthians, about the grace of God granted to the churches of Macedonia. And that probably was the Philippians and the Thessalonians during a very severe testing and famine and persecution. And he explains that during a severe testing by affliction, their abundance of joy and their deep poverty overflowed into the wealth of their generosity. Now, what got me on that was, in evaluating, have I ever been in poverty? Never. Have I had a lot in some cases? Sometimes it was hand to mouth, but never poverty. These people gave out of poverty. I testify that on their own, according to their ability, beyond their ability, they begged us insistently for the privilege of sharing in the ministry of the saints, and not just as we had hoped. Instead, they gave themselves especially to the Lord and then to us by God's will. So my question is simply, when we're richly blessed with abilities and resources, which most of us are, in spite of the fact we may have little, but when we're richly blessed with abilities and resources, how can we practice sacrificial giving? Well, I'm just simply saying that this is a question that we need to think about. I've thought about it. And I think one of the things I'm really thankful for is that I've been blessed. And I've had the privilege of giving. And I feel with my wife giving faithfully at times when we could have spent it on some other things that in some cases we almost needed. But still, I don't think that was sacrificial, not like what happened here. And I'm not saying we ought to go out and put a situation together where we're just trying to prove something to somebody, that we're sacrificial. I guess one of the things that says to me is, boy, I ought to be thankful and generous with what I have. Not feel guilty, but be generous, because it's generosity that God really honors. Thank God he honors the widow's mite. He honors us probably when we don't deserve to be honored. But the principle still stands. We should seek to please God by offering him sacrificial gifts, should that ever happen, the opportunity. And for some of us, that may happen in our lives. And then we'll really be blessed. And then we'll really know what it is to be thankful for what Jesus Christ did for us.